Good day to you all, comrades and friends. This is Global Weekly News, serial number 17. First, OPEC's body flow to Biden presidency. OPEC is an organization of petroleum exporting countries. OPEC Plus is an organization including the other oil producing countries like Russia, Angola, Venezuela. OPEC is in its secretariat meeting in Vienna has decided to cut production of oil about 2 million tons per day. Joe Biden administration is establishing a narrative that the recent OPEC decision to cut oil production is a geopolitical realigning of Saudi Arabia with Russia. For Jimmy Carter, the then American president, West Asia became the burial ground of his reputation. This will happen for Joe Biden also. Biden realizes belatedly that territorial conquest in Ukraine is not the real story, but embedded in it is the economic war, and within that is the energy war that has been incubating through the past 8 months period following the Western sanctions on Russia. The paradox is, even if Zelensky wins the war, Biden would still have lost the war unless he wins the energy war and goes on to win the economic war as well. Biden didn't realize that Putin was concentrating on the economic and the energy war, the outcome of which will determine the future of US hegemony, which has been riveted on the American dollar being the reserve currency. In the early 1970s, Saudi Arabia agreed that the price of oil should be determined in American dollars, and that oil, the globally most widely traded commodity, be internationally traded in dollars, which virtually mandated that every country on the planet ought to hold dollar reserves in order to buy oil in the international market. The US, of course, reciprocally pledged on its part that free access to American dollars was guaranteed for all countries. However, contrary to its guarantee, US moves to grab other countries' dollar reserves. Putin has been harping on the need for setting up a reserve currency alternative to the dollar, and this has been getting good response all over the world. White House is considering new forms of punishment for Saudi Arabia and Russia. While punishing Russia is difficult, Biden probably thinks the US holds Saudi Arabia by its neck, by its jugular veins, being the supplier of weaponry. The US political elites feel that the OPEC decision looks like a targeted Saudi move to weaken Joe Biden and Democrats in the ensuing November elections. Iran has joined Shanghai Cooperation Organization, in which Russia, China, India, etc. are members. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Egypt are being granted status as dialogue partners of SCO, and Turkey intends to seek full membership of SCO. American defense industry will resist any attempts to stop arms sales to Saudi Arabia, since they are getting more rich by selling arms to Saudi Arabia. American weapon manufacturers, they are against stopping up arms sales to Saudi. Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states involved with the OPEC Plus have effectively sided with the Kremlin, which enables Russia to refill its coffers to the treasury and to limit the impact of Western sanctions on Russia. Comrades and friends, second item we go to important Global Health and Global Poverty Index. For many years, there is stagnation in the struggle against poverty, and this is very dangerous. This is getting reflected in the Global Health Index. We are living in the advanced civilization. The profits of highly rich people are on the rise. The second goal of this millennium, 1000 years, is to eradicate poverty by 2030. But this seems not feasible. Due to climate change, food production has gone down. This will intensify poverty levels. Globally, 830 million or 83 crore people face undernourishment. South Asia and the Sub-Saharan Africa are the worst affected areas due to malnutrition. In these places, child stunting and child wasting is there. Child mortality rate is also high. International financial institutions do not lead the countries towards development. They make the countries indebted to them forever. Due to indebtedness, many countries are unable to continue their free food scheme. Left and progressive governments implement policies of nutrition. In India, due to the midday meal scheme, there is progress in education. Poverty gets reduced. In Tamil Nadu, free breakfast also is given to children of government schools. In Kerala, canteens selling very cheap food are open. We discuss about climate change, regional conflicts and wars, corruption, etc. But do we discuss about big corporate companies amassing huge wealth of billions and trillions with the aid of international financial institutions, capital? 5 most poverty dangerous prevailing countries are Central African Republic, Chad, Madagascar, Yemen and Congo. Congo and Yemen have plenty of raw materials for the digital age, but humongous poverty prevails in these countries. Comrades and friends, third we go to elections in Brazil. Election second round campaign becomes very hot in Brazil. On 30th October, second round of presidential elections will take place in Brazil. Lula da Silva of the Workers' Party is contesting against the incumbent President Jair Bolsonaro. The rightist candidate Bolsonaro is on the offensive against Lula. Personal and fake allegations are spread about Lula in the social media by Bolsonaro. Election campaign has become very hot. In the first round of elections on 2nd October, programs and the promises of the parties were highlighted. Even in 2018 presidential election, Bolsonaro spread fake accusations about Lula in social media, WhatsApp, etc. and won the elections. He said that time that electronic voting machines were not dependable. He said that Lula's Workers' Party was corrupt and criminal. Workers' Party presidential candidate of 2018 against Bolsonaro was Fernando Haddad. Fernando Haddad was in support of homosexuality. That's what Bolsonaro spread the news. Fernando issued gay kits in primary schools. All the allegations of Bolsonaro were proved to be false later on. In the first round of elections on 2nd October 2022, 21% voters did not vote. They did not take part in the election. They did not come to the polling booth and vote. 21%. Bolsonaro, in order to draw their attention, is against spreading fake news. He said, if Lula wins, he will close the churches. Lula favors abortion. Lula will induce the youth towards drug addiction. Lula is a follower of Satan. Lula is a convicted criminal thief. Lula had undergone 580 days of imprisonment. Well, Lula did undergo prison term of 580 days. The former judge and former member of Bolsonaro government, Sergio Moro, convicted Lula on political motives. The court acquitted Lula of all the charges against him and set him free. During Bolsonaro's rule in the past 4 years, Brazil's economy was in doldrums. Brazil's currency was devalued. As per the recent opinion polls, Lula will get 52.4% votes, Bolsonaro will get 47.6% votes. 2.4% voters are undecided, or rather, they may cast invalid votes. Fourth, comrades and friends, we go to Palestine. Israeli siege of refugee camp at Palestine. The Israeli occupation has left nearly 130,000 Palestinians, refugees, stranded inside the Suwapet refugee camp near occupied East Jerusalem. Israeli forces continue their search for a suspect in the killing of a soldier at a checkpoint last week. The siege has been condemned as an act of collective punishment. A Palestinian youth was killed and several others injured after Israeli occupation forces opened fire at protesters in Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank on 12th October. The protesters were demanding lifting of the Israeli siege on the Suwapet refugee camp in occupied East Jerusalem. Israeli forces prevented the Palestinians in the camp from going out and also disallowed people from outside to enter. At least 24 Palestinians were arrested from the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem in the mass raids so far. The forces even brought bulldozers inside the camp, refugee camp. The siege of refugee camp has left thousands of Palestinians, many who had regular medical checkups and treatment for terminal diseases such as cancer, stranded inside the camp without medical attention and supervision. Israeli authorities did not allow those supplies inside. Most of the basic services like sanitation was also affected. Thousands of school children who travel to the main city for studies are also not allowed to attend their classes. Human rights groups called for an immediate lifting of the siege. Israel has imposed a complete blockade on the Gaza Strip for more than 15 years now, pushing millions of residents in living crisis or in dire crisis. Just like Gaza, majority of the residents of Suwapet refugee camp are refugees of the Nakba when during the time of Israel's creation in 1848 they were forcefully expelled from their homes by Israeli armies in an attempt to ethnically cleanse the areas of historical Palestine. The Suwapet camp was built in 1865 by United Nations Relief and Work Agency, which is responsible for Palestinian refugees. Comrades and friends, fifth, we go to Haiti. Haiti is east of Cuba in the Caribbean Sea. East of Haiti is Dominican Republic. Both are in the both constitute an island. Haiti and Dominican Republic. Well, Haiti's de facto president Ariel Henry's request for foreign military support to curb gang violence has generated widespread criticism among civil society organizations, political and social leaders and citizens in general. Since 22nd August, Haitians have been mobilizing against deepening economic, political and social crisis in the country under the US supported de facto regime of Prime Minister Ariel Henry. Ariel Henry was not elected by the public. Police officers used tear gas and fired live bullets against the protesters. At least one protester was killed in the repression. In Haiti, poverty and food insecurity is increasing amid soaring prices of essential commodities and basic services, acute shortage of fuel amid brutal increase in prices, widespread gang-related kidnappings, killings and violence, and the crushing devaluation of the national currency. The protesters have denounced that activation of criminal gangs following the assassination of the country's de facto president Jovenel Moise in July 2021 is a part of Ariel Henry's strategy to remain in power. The Haitian people have stressed that they will defend their sovereignty, will not allow another foreign occupation, and will themselves find a concrete solution to their situation. They have clarified this. The application of the Montano Agreement is the ultimate goal of this struggle. The Montano Agreement advocates for the installation of a transitional government to govern the country for 2 years in order to recover the nation from the institutional crisis, rebuild the society, and organize elections for the next government. Sixth, we go to Burkina Faso. The Marxist leftist Thomas Sankara was the president of Burkina Faso, the West African country, from 1983 to 87. He was assassinated in a coup. Compaoré was the president from 87 to 2014. Compaoré was convicted to life sentence for the murder of Thomas Sankara. Kaboré became president using large-scale insurrection in October 2014. In 2022, September 30, there was a coup led by Captain Traoré and the government led by Damiba fell. Damiba came to power in a coup in January. That is, in 1 year, there are 2 coups. During Damiba's rule, armed violence increased by 23%. Burkina Faso earns $2 billion by gold sales, but 22 million people live in poverty. This is the tragedy. The dreams of Thomas Sankara are yet to be fulfilled. Thank you, comrades. See you next week. Lal Salam.